Tonight we lift our eyes to the place where the sky becomes deep, dark, and quiet. The noise of the day has already faded. The forests are still. The lakes hold the faint reflection of the stars. The mountains rest like soft shadows at the edge of the world. And high above the sleeping earth a small constellation shines. Its name is Lyra. Lyra is not a large constellation. It does not stretch across the sky like a giant hunter. It does not look like a king. It does not look like a monster. It is small, almost shy. Just a few stars gathered near one of the brightest lights in the northern sky. That star is Vega. Vega shines with a cool, clear light like a silver spark in the depth of a summer night. And beside it, quietly hidden in its glow, rests Lyra, the celestial harp, a little instrument made of stars. Long ago, people looked up at these stars and imagined music. Not loud music, not music for celebration or noise, but a gentle kind of music, the kind that seems to live somewhere between sleep and memory, the kind you can almost hear when the world becomes very quiet, when the lights in houses go out one by one, when roads become empty, when the wind slows down, when a person is alone beneath the night sky. Tonight, we are not in a hurry. There is nowhere we need to go, nothing we need to prove. We are only looking upward, into the soft darkness, toward the little constellation of Lyra, shining like a golden harp left among the stars. And perhaps, if we listen very carefully, we can imagine that its strings are still sounding, very softly, so softly that the music almost becomes silence. Lyra lives in the northern sky. It is easiest to find because of Vega. Vega, together with Deneb in the constellation Cygnus, and Altair in the constellation Aquila, forms the great summer triangle. 3 bright stars, 3 quiet fires, 3 points of light across which the summer night seems to stretch a hidden piece of silver cloth. Deneb belongs to the swan, Altair belongs to the eagle, and Vega keeps Lyra close beside it, the little harp, the small sign of music in the sky. Some constellations are wide and powerful. They fill the night with great shapes. They seem to ask to be noticed. But Lyra is different. Lyra does not ask for attention. It simply shines, and maybe that's why it feels so gentle. Sometimes the smallest things carry the deepest stories. 1 star, 1 sound, 1 memory, 1 quiet shape that stays in the heart longer than many loud words. In ancient Greece, people told a story about the first lyre. They said it was made by Hermes. Hermes was a young god, clever, quick, and curious. He could move between worlds. He was the messenger of the gods, but in this story he's not frightening or grand. He is simply someone who knows how to see possibilities in simple things. One day, the myth says, Hermes found the empty shell of a tortoise. Someone else might have walked past it. Someone else might have seen only a dry shell lying on the ground. But Hermes stopped. He looked more closely, and where others saw emptiness, he heard a future sound. He took the shell. He stretched strings across it, and from silence, music was born. Imagine that first sound. The world had never heard it before. The air paused, the stones were silent, the grass did not move. Even the light seemed softer, and then from something simple and quiet, a melody appeared. Something invisible became audible. Something empty became full of meaning. This was how the lyre was born, not as a weapon, not as a crown, not as a symbol of power, but as a way to turn silence into comfort. Perhaps every gentle song begins this way, with someone listening carefully to silence, and then, one day, hearing music inside it. When Apollo heard the sound of the lyre, he was amazed. Apollo was the god of light, harmony, art, and clear beauty. He was often imagined as radiant and calm, and the music of the lyre seemed to belong to him, as if it had always been waiting for his hands. Hermes gave the lyre to Apollo, and from then on, the instrument became connected with divine music, with harmony, with beauty, with the soft order of the world. The lyre did not command. It did not conquer. It did not argue. It simply sang, and the world became a little quieter. There was no harsh power in the lyre, but there was another kind of power, the power to calm a troubled thought, the power to soften the heart, the power to remind a tired soul that even in a wide and difficult world, beauty still exists. Imagine an ancient evening in Greece, the golden light fading behind the hills, the marble columns cooling after the heat of the day, the olive trees standing still, far away the sea breathing slowly against the shore, and in that gentle air the strings begin to sound, not loudly, not for a crowd, but as if for the earth itself, for stone, for water, for evening light, for anyone who has carried too much through the day. The lyre became a symbol of music that does not hurry, music that does not demand an answer, music beside which you can simply rest. But the most famous story of Lyra is not only about Hermes and Apollo, it is also the story of Orpheus. Orpheus was the greatest musician in the old myths. People said that when he played, the world changed. Animals stopped being afraid. Trees leaned closer, as if they wanted to listen. Rivers slowed their waters. Even stones seemed to soften. His music did not simply fill the air, it touched everything living. Sometimes the music of Orpheus was joyful. Sometimes it was bright. Sometimes it was as pure as morning air. But one day it changed, because Orpheus loved Eurydice, and when Eurydice died, the whole world seemed to grow dim. The sky was still the sky. The earth was still the earth. Rivers still moved. Birds still flew. But for Orpheus, everything became quieter, too quiet, and then his lyre began to sing, not of joy, but of love, of memory, of the ache that remains when someone beloved is no longer near. Orpheus could not let go, so he took his lyre and went where the living do not usually go, into the underworld. But let us not imagine this place as terrifying. Imagine it instead as very still. Grey shores, a dark river, stone halls, slow air, almost outside of time, shadows that do not hurry. A distant world where everything is quiet. Orpheus entered that place with his lyre in his hands, and he began to play. His music became a soft light in the kingdom of shadows. It did not shout. It did not break open doors. It simply told the truth. It told of love, of sunlight, of walking beside someone dear, of the warmth of life, of how deeply loss can hurt, and how hard it can be to release what we love. They said even the souls stopped to listen. Even the stones of the underworld grew gentle. Even the rulers of that quiet realm heard something in his song that could not be refused. Orpheus was allowed to bring Eurydice back, but there was one condition. He had to walk in front of her. She would follow behind him, and he must not look back until they both reached the world of light. Imagine that path. Long, slow, silent. Orpheus walks ahead. His lyre is in his hands. Far before him there is light. Behind him, perhaps, are the footsteps of Eurydice, but he cannot see her. He cannot be certain. He cannot ask. He must trust. Sometimes that is the hardest thing. Not to hold, not to check, not to turn around, only to keep walking, and to believe. They were almost at the entrance. The light was close. The air was becoming lighter. The living world was near. And in that final moment, Orpheus could not bear it. He turned around, only for a moment, only to see, only to know that she was truly there. And Eurydice disappeared. Not with thunder, not with a cry, but quietly, like morning mist dissolving in sunlight, like a dream fading when someone wakes, like the last note of a song, still present in memory, but no longer in the air. Orpheus lost her again, and his music became deeper than before. In old myths, not everything can be repaired. Not every love returns. Not every door opens twice. But sometimes love becomes song, and song becomes memory, and memory rises toward the stars. After the death of Orpheus, the myth says his lyre was placed in the sky, and there it became the constellation Lyra. It shines not as a sign of victory, not as a sign of defeat, but as a quiet reminder that what we truly love does not disappear completely. It can change its shape. It can become music. It can become light. It can become a small constellation in the depth of night. The lyre of Orpheus no longer rests in human hands, but it shines above the earth. And whenever someone looks at Vega, and at the small pattern of stars beside it, they may imagine that somewhere in the silence, the music is still alive. Very distant, very soft, almost unheard, but real. Different peoples looked at these same stars and saw different things. To the Greeks, this was a lyre, a heavenly instrument, the voice of Orpheus, the gift of Apollo. But in Arabic star tradition, Vega was connected with the image of a bird. Sometimes it was imagined as a falling or descending eagle, and that is beautiful too, because the same star can be music to one people and a wing to another. Someone hears strings, someone sees flight, someone looks at Vega and thinks of a song. Someone else looks and thinks of a bright bird moving silently through the night. There is a quiet wisdom in the sky. The stars do not argue with our stories. They allow human hearts to see what they need. One star can become a harp. It can become a bird. It can become a guiding light. It can become a memory. It can become the beginning of sleep. There is another story connected with Vega. It comes from China. In Chinese tradition, Vega is known as Jinu, the heavenly weaver girl, and the bright star Altair, in the constellation Aquila, is connected with Niulang, the cowherd. Between them lies the Milky Way, the heavenly river, a pale band of light crossing the night. The legend tells of the love between the weaver girl and the cowherd. They were separated by the river of stars. One star shone on one shore. The other star shone on the other. They could see each other. They could shine to each other through the darkness. But the river of the sky lay between them. Imagine it slowly. Night, a deep sky, the Milky Way like a river of silver dust. On one shore, Vega. On the other, Altair. Two lights that do not go out. Two stars looking toward each other across eternity. This story may seem sad, but it also carries tenderness, because once each year, according to the legend, birds form a bridge across the heavenly river, and the weaver girl and the cowherd may meet again, only for a short time. But that time is enough for the sky to feel softer, for the stars to seem closer, for people on Earth to remember that distance does not always mean an ending. Sometimes love lives in waiting. Sometimes it lives in light that does not fade. Sometimes it lives in two stars continuing to shine for one another, even when a whole river of heaven lies between them. In this legend, Vega is not only a star. She becomes a woman weaving the cloth of the sky, quietly, patiently, night after night. She weaves light, she weaves clouds, she weaves soft paths of stars, and perhaps the Milky Way itself is part of her work, a long silver fabric spread above the sleeping earth. So around one small constellation, many stories gather. The Greek lyre, the music of Orpheus, the light of Apollo, the wing of a bird, the heavenly weaver girl, the distant cowherd, the Milky Way as a river. All of this lives around Vega, around little Lyra, around a few stars that, to a hurried eye, might look like simple points of light. But if we look longer, they begin to open. They become a story. They become a song. They become a place where the mind can rest before sleep. Now imagine that you are lying beneath this sky. The night is calm. The air is cool but gentle. Somewhere far away a soft wind moves. Perhaps there is a lake nearby. Its surface is dark and still. The stars are reflected in it. And it seems as if there is one sky above you and another below. Two skies, one high, one resting in the water. And between them, the earth breathes quietly. Vega shines above the horizon. The little Lyra beside it is almost hidden, but you know it is there, and that is enough. Not everything important must be large. Not everything beautiful must be loud. Sometimes what we need most is quiet, slightly aside, waiting for the person who looks carefully. Lyra reminds us that silence is not empty. Music can live inside it. It reminds us that memory does not always have to be heavy. Sometimes memory becomes light. It reminds us that love can change its shape, that a song can outlive the one who sang it, that a small pattern of stars can hold thousands of years of human dreaming, and that the night is not only dark, it is also kind, because night covers the world gently. It softens the edges of things. It slows our thoughts. It lets the world become quiet. Under such a sky, there is no need to think quickly. You can let the day go, its conversations, its worries, its noise, its unfinished tasks, all of it can remain far below. And here, in the soft dark, only the stars remain. Lyra, Vega, the Milky Way, and the quiet music that does not need to be heard by the ears. It can simply be felt, as peace, as slow breathing, as the sense that above the world there is still a gentle order, ancient, soft, and full of light. Orpheus no longer walks the dark road. Eurydice no longer fades in the final glance. Hermes no longer stretches the first strings. Apollo no longer plays at dawn. The weaver girl and the cowherd still shine on opposite sides of the heavenly river. But in the night sky, all these stories become calm. They no longer wound, they simply shine. Old myths, when they rise into the stars, lose their sharp edges. Their sorrow becomes beauty. Their love becomes light. Their longing becomes music. Perhaps this is why people have always looked at the sky before sleep, because there, even the most difficult stories become gentle. Even loss becomes a constellation. Even waiting becomes a star. Even loneliness becomes part of a larger pattern. Lyra shines high above the earth, a small celestial harp. It does not play loudly. It does not call out. It does not ask to be heard. It simply remains, and that is its peace. Vega burns beside it, clear and silver. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a slow river of light. Somewhere within it lies the path between Vega and Altair. Somewhere there, birds of light will one day build a bridge. Somewhere there, Orpheus still remembers his song. And here, on earth, you can rest. Breathe slowly. Let the body grow heavy. Let the thoughts become soft. Let the night do its quiet work. The stars will remain. The sky will remain. Lyra will remain. And high above the sleeping earth, the celestial harp will continue to shine. Softly, calmly, almost silently, as if the stars themselves are humming you to sleep. The night remains. The sky remains. And Lyra continues shining quietly above the earth.